who has decided to put his name, his time, his money, his finance, and his family on the line to run for public office. That means something very special to me. From one young brother to another who's trying to do the best he can. As you can see, if you look around in this room, I'm 37 years old, and I'm probably about the youngest person up in here.
You ain't gotta do you ain't gotta go there in a church.
21-year-old got me beat. That was the joke. Y'all didn't get the joke. I know Trump said it. I was saying it as a joke. God almighty, take the joke. Some activists need to learn how to laugh. Start ready to protest me. What? All right, we're gonna have him come up. All right, we want to have a few words from him. After we have a few words from him, we've got some singing, and so we're gonna hear some singing to get us in that space where we prepare to receive a word from our president, who will be addressed by him. He will address all the different things that we're dealing with, and certainly we are looking forward to having him here. We are organizing around ballots, bullets, and bank accounts. Three important issues that if we learn to deal with in our community, we will provide success for all of our people. Give it up for my brother.
Thank you, Reverend Williams, and thank you to all of you who are here today. I'm Rob Richardson, and I will be the next treasurer of the state of Ohio. I want to tell you a little bit about my values, what brings me here. I come from a long line of fighters. My mother grew up extremely poor, 11 other brothers and sisters, but she learned from my grandfather, who was actually born in 1903, and his father, my great-grandfather, was actually a slave. But my grandfather always found a way, despite being an African-American man growing up, being born in 1903, going through all the things that an African-American went through in it started in 1903 all the way through that century. He found a way to provide for his family. He was an entrepreneur. He was a chef during the Great Depression. My mother learned from that, and she started her own business, the first of which actually failed. But she came right back, paid back all the debts, and she now has her own successful business right now. My father has a very different story. He comes from a small town called Beatrice, Alabama. He moved to Cincinnati, Ohio when he was about 16 years old. Graduated from high school and then started attending the University of Cincinnati. And his original plan was to get a degree in electrical engineering. And he got about 3 years down the path of that plan. And then he met my strong, beautiful mother. They got some different plans. They got pregnant. And as I remind everyone, this is not my fault. This is my older sister. But he had to find a way to provide for his family. He was able to do so as a construction union laborer.
All right.
And he worked out. He started off in construction. Yes. And he's moved his way up now. He's the regional manager and vice president of the Laborers International Union. But he didn't start there. He started in the field, working hard. And I'm also a member of the Laborers International Union, a second-generation member. And I think the story of the Laborers International Union tells an important story for where we're at right now in this state and in this country. The laborers started off representing some of the hardest work you can do in construction, and representing people that at the time, most folks said didn't deserve to have representation. Newly freed slaves, African Americans, incoming Italian immigrants, and incoming Irish immigrants. And when we were first formed, most folks were saying they don't deserve to be represented. They're just laborers. They're barely American. Sounds kind of familiar. I'm glad that advice was ignored, because while my father didn't get a chance to get his degree in electrical engineering, he literally helped build the building where I took my classes in electrical engineering, and I was going to graduate. But I tell folks that's not a story that's unique to me. That's the story of many Ohioans and many Americans. It's a story of African Americans. It's also the story of Italian Americans and Irish Americans. It's the story of Jewish Americans, German Americans, Latino Americans, Indian Americans. It is literally the story of all of us. So when I hear this nonsense about we need to make America great again, We're going to send a real clear reminder November 6th. That America's at its greatest when we focus on diversity of thought, diversity of experience, and diversity itself. We are great because of diversity, not in spite of it. And so those values are what I bring as the next treasurer. And it's no wonder when I have my own struggles, having those fighters be your parents, why I was able to overcome. I was in learning disability classes from about the 2nd through the 8th grade and struggled a lot in school. But luckily, again, my parents always encouraged me. So when the light bulb went off towards the end of the 8th grade, I had a conversation with my 8th grade teacher, and I told her, look, I believe I can achieve more. I want to go to college. I want to start preparing for college. She looked at me and gave me her version of a motivational speech.
What was that?
She said, look, Rob, college is not meant for everybody. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but that's not going to happen for you. Thankfully, my mom and both my parents, but particularly my mom's words sit with me. She said, look, Rob, you don't have to be defined by anyone's low or narrow expectations. You define yourself, for yourself, by yourself. You let God do the rest. So I stand now as a proud graduate in engineering, a proud graduate in law, and I got a chance to, thank you. And I got a chance to chair the University of Cincinnati, being its youngest chairman in its entire history. But that story normally turns out differently for most kids and families. And that's why I'm in this opportunity right now. It's why I'm running for office. The fight to expand access and opportunities for others. And I gotta tell you, we've had a lot of trouble in this state. 24 out of the last 28 years has been one-party rule. Republicans have been in charge of every position of power for almost a whole generation.
Yeah.
And what they've done is put the interests of profits over people no matter what. And how we fund our schools. You might have heard about this online for-profit school called Econ that just went out of business. Let me just tell you, for-profit schools are a horrible, stupid idea to have no place in government. It shouldn't be funded at all. But that's what happens when you have one-party rule. So they did this, they gave this one system over $1 billion the last 10 years. And they went back into the audit and found out there were no kids being taught. But they still collected the money. And we know that they at least stole about $200 million. They could have stolen most of that $1 billion. Think about how many kids we could have actually educated for $1 billion. Think about how many teachers we could have trained for $1 billion. Think about a state that has many healthcare crises, that has a lot of healthcare problems. One being the #1 opioid deaths in the entire nation. Think about how many people we could have helped with that. But all that money's been wasted. Doesn't stop there. We invest in for-profit prisons with your pension dollars. We have the 4th largest prison population in the United States. Let me tell you what one of the first orders of business will be as your next treasurer. We're going to divest every single public dollar out of our public prison system. They have no place out. But I need all of you to get involved. Look, this is not a position that garners a lot of attention, though it has a lot of power. It can really affect a lot of opportunities for folks. I can do a lot of things to fight for people, and I will, but I can't do that without support. So I want to make sure as I close to talk about how important this election is. Normally I can just conclude on this and just talk about the differences in the policies between myself and the other side. I'll talk to you now. Thank you. I'm honored to be in front of Reverend Sharpton. As I conclude, he's right here, Reverend Sharpton. As I conclude, You know, this is not a normal election. These aren't normal times. These are extraordinary times. And we're gonna have to fight and work as if everything is on the line. You know, people often say this is the most important election of our lifetime. This one really actually is. This actually is one of the most important moments of our lifetime. So we're gonna have to work, we're gonna have to fight, and we're gonna have to get involved, and we're gonna have to push, and sometimes make others uncomfortable. And when you do that, people will often question your patriotism. They'll try to say you're not American. When they do that, I want you to remind them of something. This country was literally founded on a protest. When the founders said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, and they should have said women too, are created equal, they were fighting, protesting, resisting, working for a better future. When Dr. Martin Luther King said, I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed, he died trying to achieve that dream. We still have some work to do to make sure it's going to be achieved. We know Reverend Sharpton has been a part of that. We know we've been a part of that. But we got more work to do, because let me tell you something. We have to win in 2018. This is not about Democrats versus Republicans. This is about it's a moral test for our nation and who we want to be. And there's no magical blue wave coming down to save everybody. There's no judges coming to save us. And there's no responsible Republicans stepping up. Each and every one of us are going to have to step up and fight for the future we want. Nothing is guaranteed. The future is not guaranteed. Progress is not guaranteed. Inclusion is not guaranteed. Everything has to be fought for, and we earn it through our votes, and we have to fight back in this election and make sure we send a clear message November 6th that this is not who we are as a nation. I'm Rob Richardson. I want to be there to fight for you as your next treasurer. God bless you.
All right, we got the NAN Midwest region, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, North, South Dakota, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio. Come on, let me hear from Wisconsin. Indiana and Minnesota. Look, we have the man in the house. Charles Williams told me to introduce him. I said, this man introduced himself all over the world. Here, right now, Al Sharpton. Come on, put it together and let the man come from.
No justice, no peace. 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 What do we want? Justice. What do we want? Justice. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. When do we want it? Now. When do we want it? Now. Hug the person next to you, tell them you love them. Let me first say that we are happy and honored more than we can express in words to be in Cabinet Hall on Cabinet's way. With Cabinet himself in attendance. And we definitely are very proud and happy to be here. Let me first thank all of you that have traveled from around the region. We had said in our national convention in April that we wanted to go region by region, particularly in this midterm election year, to deal with the fact that they're trying to disenfranchise voters. And because of the gallant leadership and vision of our Midwest Regional Chair, who also chairs Michigan, Reverend Charles Williams, he took the time on this. And he has proven that he not only has caught the vision, but he's moved it forward and has done it throughout the region and expanded nationwide. I should say Reverend Charles Williams II, because his daddy he stood up and took the vow, but I was talking about your son. And our National Field Director, Reverend Toon. And certainly there is no better. We have 106 chapters. We don't have a better chapter president in the country than Marcia McCoy. Give her a hand. Come on, stand up, Marcia. I also want to recognize one of the, you meet people down through the years in struggle, and we've all grown in struggle. And if you don't grow, you're stagnant. If you're stagnant, you can't bring life because you don't have life. But we have, down through the years, you find people that are consistent and that are on the cutting edge and that never stop. And we have that in your luncheon speaker, Reverend Mark Thompson. And I'm glad Tom, stand up again. He's talking about the issue. Rob is talking about the issues that we need to talk about. Let me say a couple of things. First of all, you that study scripture know that God does not deal in confusion. He deals in continuity. If you read the Bible, one of the ways you can tell the difference between a prophet and a pimp is that a prophet is connected to a prophetic tradition. A pimp tries to act like it all started with him or her, like they the original. Every prophet in the Bible, first thing they say is in the name of the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. They identify where they come from. And even when we first meet Jesus, St. Matthew's first chapter, Jesus, they do his lineage back to David and show he was in the lineage of prophecy. You need to know that one of the wisdom signals of Charles Williams is that he wanted to do the regional conference in Abyssinia, Great Abyssinia, because this church is where Dr. King and those behind King, we don't just say we in the King tradition, we are with a man that worked with Dr. King. Now, we embrace other traditions, but we unapologetically come out of the King tradition. But Dr. King worked with Smith, and he worked with others, just like Reverend Cavendish and Reverend Williams and I work with people that have the same commitment and same goal, but have different ways we do. We all got different lanes. If you were singing a choir, some sing soprano, some sing alto, some sing tenor, some just moody lips, can't sing at all. But it all makes music. That's why when I got here, I looked outside for BMA. I wouldn't get out the car if I didn't see BMA, because I don't know what y'all allowed to do to me in the hood. But if they here, I know I'm cool. And they do what they do, we do what we do, but we do it together. Because if they mess with them, I'm coming. They mess with me, they there. And we got to understand the collective and the historic respect. What you need to know is Martin Luther King, and I'm going to bring it right into this election, in Ohio, and into, as I speak, Kavanaugh's up there trying to get in the Supreme Court that's going to affect us. But I want you to understand the perspective that I'm going to say all this from. Martin Luther King had the Montgomery bus boycott. Started in 55.
Yeah.
Now, it was attached at a time that we had heightened our attention, because the year before had been the Brown versus Board of Education decision of 54.
Right. That's right.
Emmett Till got killed. All of this led into people having the determination to boycott. See, we look at these things as abstract. The movement got a big push with Brown versus the Board of Ed. Got the shock with Emmett Till. Rosa Parks said when she sat down on the bus, all she could think about was Emmett Till. These things were connected. So King, Deidre, I'm gonna preach today. We're gonna let you preach tomorrow. We're gonna let you preach tomorrow. 10 o'clock, be right here, see Reverend. You preach in the morning, I'll be gone. Morning preacher too. Deidre calls me on the radio, that's my friend. Now, Dr. King then had an economic boycott. Said it was better to walk in dignity than ride in shame. And they formed the Montgomery Improvement Association. They went on, and then it was so successful, they went to Baton Rouge and formed SCLC. Am I right? Right. Now, why they go to Baton Rouge? Because Baton Rouge had a bus boycott before Montgomery did. Led by Reverend T.J. Jemison. They went and formed the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Meaning they were unashamedly Christian. And they were regional. Dr. King led a regional movement for a decade.
Talk.
When he decided to go north and nationalize the movement, he had a global reputation, had won the Nobel Prize, but had just a regional, Southern regional organization.
That's right.
When he decided to go national, he came to Cleveland and Chicago. So the roots of the King tradition going north is in Cleveland. When he came in 66 into Cleveland, they did voter registration, voter education, and helped to make the tenets of electing the first black mayor here, Carl Stokes. Is that not right? That's the history. Carl Stokes was a direct result of King movement coming north. The Democrats were so afraid that when Carl Stokes won the primary, they didn't want Martin Luther King to come downstairs to the celebration because it would scare white voters. That's a fact. Dr. King stayed up in his room. And Carl Stokes won the general election. A lot of the voter stuff, we did not have foundations in them days. See, Whitey Walker and them that work with King raised me, so I know what I'm talking about. That's right. They didn't have foundation grants. They didn't have corporate grants. It was folk in the churches and the streets that funded the movement. It was the black churches. Don King and them were taking money out the street. This is before Don's hair was crazy. That's how they funded the movement. So when you look at Cleveland and then Chicago, where Jesse Jackson headed for Dr. King, you're seeing the roots that National Action Network came from, because as Jesse organized Breadbasket, his second chapter was in Brooklyn. That's where I started at 13 years old. So this is a direct connection from Cleveland to Chicago to Brooklyn to National Action Network. Now, that is why the first thing that they tried to do in suppressing the vote was started in Ohio. When they undercounted the 2004 vote and started purging the polls.
That's right.
It was to purge the rolls to bring down the vote, because the seed of the movement was here. what we must do is protect the vote in Ohio and make sure that everybody that can vote and vote their interests. Because it was everybody sitting back talking about, well, I don't know who turns me on. It's not about who turns you on. I heard people talking about, well, Hillary, she just don't excite me, and this one don't excite me, and this, that. Let me tell you something. Rosa Parks should excite you. Them 4 girls that got killed in the church in Birmingham should excite you. Maybe Evans laying down dying in his driveway should excite you. I'm not voting for somebody that gets me thrills. I'm voting for my interests. When you see Rob running for treasurer and you see all the pension money in Ohio, and they take pension monies from public workers, educational institutions, and give them to white money managers who does investments with their friends who are developers, and the developers take grandma's pension money and funds their gentrification. So grandma is actually paying to be removed from her own house. It's bad enough that they running grandma out the neighborhood. What's worse is they won't even tell grandma it's her pension that the developers ain't using their own money. They get money because of the apartheid distribution of pension money. So treasury is just as important as government. Because we want to not only have a democracy in terms of schools, we want to democratize the money. I went and met with a union, Sacramento, last week. I asked them, I said, do you understand that 60% of your members are black and not one black money manager? Well, right now we got Prop 209 here, we can't go by race. If you got 99% white, you are going by race.
That's right. Tell it.
You cut us out. Then make a law to say that you can't force us in, but you handling our money. So when National Action Network said it's fine, I'll get 10 teachers and put a class action suit against y'all to explain to me how y'all choose in one community. They say, oh, well, let's sit down. We think we get around 209. But a better way is to start putting people in charge of the money. We are right now sitting up where everybody knows that Donald Trump has been an embarrassment to this country. Anytime you got a president of the United States stand up, speak at the UN, and the whole world laugh in his face, and he turn around and act like they was laughing with him, they know that he's embarrassed. The reason they tolerate Trump is because Trump is putting people on the courts and in the position that they want. If they can stack the Supreme Court, and if they can take care of all of this, there was an article in yesterday's New York Times where they said that the interest, just the interest now, not the debt, the interest on the debt is higher now than the military budget. Just paying the interest on it. That's Trump. When you cut taxes on the wealthy, you got less money coming in. And all of the services got to be paid for, and you still got to pay the interest, and it's going toward inflation. Now, all of that's going to affect us. So National Action Network's job is, since the Midwest and Ohio in particular is going to decide the election, we need to tie that down this year by voting and protecting the vote, not for either party, but for our interests. If nobody come and talk to us about criminal justice, nobody come talking to us about where the money's going, nobody come talking to us about our rights. Right here in Cleveland, 12-year-old boy shot dead. and act like it didn't happen. Couple shot over 100 times, act like it didn't happen. You ain't got to talk about Dallas, talk about right here in Cleveland. How you gonna run for anything in Ohio and not discuss with us Tamir Rice? That's an insult to us. We must have an agenda, and we protect that agenda with our votes. Why? Because this is where it started. Y'all talk, Dr. King. I'm telling you, this is how he came on.
Yeah.
And that is what we need to do coming out of this conference. Is we need to hit every state that you got. I don't care if you got a lot of members or little. It's enough to do what needs to be done. Because what they want to do is have you in this eternal reality show. What Trump doing now? Oh God, look, y'all be watching Trump like y'all watching Housewives of the Night. You got to get beyond the drama and the theater and see how they are reordering the business. So they're having all this wall-to-wall coverage on Kavanaugh and the accusers. Well, that's serious, but I already was questioning. Kavanaugh has taken a position that a sitting president should not be prosecuted or sued. That alone should raise questions on him. You ain't need no accusers. For me, what he has said as the judge is enough to deal with Kavanaugh. I don't need nothing salacious. Voting is salacious enough to me. And how they're trying to take the rest of the Voting Rights Act. Get involved in selling and promoting and breaking down our people, their interests. And we need to have a vote come out like we've never seen before. I was in Flint 2 Sundays ago. Still no water. Still can't drink out there.
Still dirty. Flint still ain't got no
Now they
clean
went into
water.
some of the schools in Detroit.
All our schools, water been shut off.
How much do they have to do before we get up and get on them? They're poisoning whole cities. They shoot 12-year-old kids down. Just jump out the car and shoot them in cold blood on video and acquit the police. They're taking your money and financing you getting kicked out your own neighborhood.
That's right.
We've got to have an insult level. We've got to be where we say enough is enough. You got the inequality in health care. You get Obama in office. He does what no president can do.